Welcome back. While we continue to get reaction to the President signing the Land Expropriation Bill, which is now an act, and we're joined by the ANC's Mzwandile Masina in studio with us this evening. Good evening. Thank you so much for coming in to give us reaction. I think just to put your position forward here. The President signs the bill. Your thoughts, the party's position as well.
Thank you very much. The African National Congress welcomed the signing of the bill. It's been 5 years since the bill has been in the making in Parliament to ensure that we enact a new law to replace the Act of 1975. Basically, there were quite a number of problematic areas in that specific act. But in the main, what I want to highlight to the people of South Africa is that, firstly, we want to make sure that we can align many of the legislation with the Constitution of South Africa, which is the first point. As you know, that outdated act was not aligned with the Constitution. Secondly, we wanted to ensure that we include clauses like public interest, because it was excluded. In the main, it talked about public purpose. Public purpose in the eyes of apartheid was about infrastructure projects of government, where they wanted to build a road. They used that act to ensure that they can build a road. Public interest in our case, for instance, include issues like land reform and other related issues of transformation, which is very critical because this is where we've been found wanting in the main. Thirdly, there is also a third aspect of the nil compensation, which means that the state can now expropriate the land that has been abandoned and the land that is being used for speculative purposes in the main and for public interest, as long as we can prove that. These are some of the provisions that have been made, which I think that are very, very critical. I must say that as the African National Congress, this is our first step towards transformation and land reform in the main. And our second and last destination should be around repealing the Section 25 of the Constitution. And we are hoping that we will work with other progressive parties to ensure that that resolution of the African National Congress is actually attained. Yeah,
just moments ago I had a conversation, though, with the Democratic Alliance's Karabo Kakao. They, of course, have said that they're going to challenge the signing of the act. And then in our conversation, she raised the issue around the process followed up until this point. Does not pass procedural muster, and I don't know what you make of that, if you're concerned about what that will do. She's talked about how it also has not passed the majority mandate in terms of members of parliament in the NCOP voting on it.
The problem with the DA, they bring people who are, not very clued up with lawmaking, and I'm not surprised to have such statements from them. And they think that Parliament is run through courts, and I will not be surprised if they run through court. The President has accented this into law. As functionaries, as parliamentarians, we want to ensure that this law is being implemented. And as the political party, my party, the African National Congress, our preoccupation now will be the next phase of ensuring that we deal with the clause of Section 25 of the Constitution itself. So these two issues must not be mixed as one, as it were.
Yeah, so as we continue to get reaction from other political parties, I actually want to bring in the statement that's come in this evening from the economic freedom fighters, which is interesting because there was a sense that, the ANC and the EFF in the years past were holding hands on the matter of Section 25, but to some extent. But this is what the EFF has said. The EFF notes the decision by the President. Further on, it says they opposed the act because it provides a legislative mechanism for the implementation of Section 5, subsections 2 and 3, which provide that property may be expropriated in terms of land, general application for a public purpose in the public interest. Okay, and then a little bit further down, it says the Act provides a closed list of instances in which compensation for expropriation could be calculated to mean a nil compensation. These instances include cases where land is held for speculation purposes. So even if it were true that these categories of land could be expropriated at nil compensation, this would not change the structure and nature of land holding in South Africa. And that's really, I think, the key point here, that where you've talked about abandoned land, they're saying that the act in how it is now being signed does not change the structure of land holding in South Africa.
Look, that's not quite correct. I think that that's one of the corrections I made in the other channel with another colleague, that you can't discuss the bill which has been signed into law and confuse it with the Constitution. And if they are serious about expropriation without compensation, we invite them as African National Congress to come and join hands with us to ensure that we have a 2/3 and we will then enact the law that is going to ultimately ensure that the land is available to all South Africans. What this act does specifically, it basically triggers issues of transformation which were not catered for in the 1975 Act. And that as the African National Congress, we welcome that and we are certain that it will actually move us a step further in ensuring that our people have got access to land as it were. But we know that ultimately we want to make sure that our people have got access to productive land where they can farm, where they can do other key activities, including building estates where our people could be residing. So these are the things that we are looking for. So we have no doubt that more work must be done, but we commend the President for signing this act under these difficult conditions that we are facing as African National Congress.
The Democratic Alliance making the point, though, that prior to the signing of the act, we have not performed well in getting land back into the hands of those that we're trying to do this for, making the point that we have seen families choosing money over the land.
That's a problem of undermining the intellect of our people. We want land. This land was basically stolen in 1652. The land has to be returned to the rightful owners. So we don't have such a debate with them because we must rather focus on the relationship we have to run South Africa for now. But with regard to the principal issues of the ANC, they have no business in telling us on how we must move forward with issues of transformation in South Africa. Yeah,
but there is something to be said about the successes that we've had in land reform in the years past. So land that has sat in the hands of government, intended to be handed over, the DA saying that has not happened. So is there something that needs to be done in the mechanisms that are necessary for land reform?
But we have to look at the quality of that land and where that land is being located. So we want productive land for the people of South Africa. So they can't decide which land we must get, which land we must not get, because this land belonged to our forefathers. So it's a debate we are not going to have with the Democratic Alliance.
Okay. What you want to see take place next? I mean, this is interesting because you've got, I was talking about this earlier with a colleague, you've got Mzwandile Masina of the PAC, who's now the Land Reform Minister, and the party having for many, many decades said land first. So he's got the responsibility now in that department. What do you expect from him?
Look, obviously, we really are sympathetic to the PAC on the land question. We're together. Unfortunately, in terms of what we need to do in Parliament, they will have to join, with the seat that they have when we bring, the next level of expropriation, which will invariably come. But what is important, and we said this to other channels, that we are inviting parties that are progressive to come and work with us so that we can sort out modalities, so that we don't go to Parliament to grandstand about the modalities which we could set up, we could sort up as parties when we are actually having a private conversation. Because if we agree with the principle of land expropriation without compensation, then we need to work out modalities that are going to be, that are going to make sense to the people of South Africa. And we must then go and change the constitution. And that for us is another phase. Where we are now, this bill is critical in ensuring that issues of land reform, issues of transformation are affected, but then issues of ensuring that we align some of these acts with the Constitution. We always knew that the seventh administration were going to have difficulties in passing different laws, so it's important that all those laws that were started prior, have to go through and ensure that we can conclude on them, so that the new laws we then get into a table with those that are in government with us. And we continue to invite those parties that are saying to be progressive to come work with us, especially on issue-by-issue basis, where we've got common interests that have to do with the people of South Africa.
Allow me to ask, I suppose, a surface discussion, and it's one about optics, I think. When South Africans talk about land, sometimes the example of Zimbabwe is made. And I actually want to sit with that, because there's this view that where land is concerned, there are economic sort of implications for it down the line. Is that at all a concern? So where that argument does then come up, what do you say?
Look, I don't think that, those are people who want to protect the status quo with things like that. I don't think that our people are so irresponsible that they can take their productive land and just sit on it and, throw parties. That's not how the people of South Africa are thinking. The people of South Africa wants their dignity. So the land is a basis in which we can have our dignity as black people. So we have to be respected because there is no master-servant relationship with regard to issues of the land. The land belongs to our ancestors, and we want the land to go back to in the hands of the people. And the state is going to be, you know, a very important player in ensuring that the land is redistributed to the people as a whole, and the land is used productively to ensure that it produces for our people. When they found us here, John van Riebeeck, we were not starving. We were eating, the land was arable, we were using the land. So we can't now, 300 and odd years been questioning about our capacity. If actually you go to every farm as it were today, you'll find that the farmers are black. The only thing we don't have is access to land, is access to resources. I believe that our people, if they are given access to land and access to resources, our people are going to make sure that the land is productive. So it's an argument that does not hold as far as I'm concerned.
Any concerns around land grabs? Or perceptions that this is where we're heading? Look,
we've seen some parties that promote land grab, and that the ANC is not one of those parties, and we discourage land grab because it destabilizes, town planning, and also it continues to indignify our people in those spaces because, it becomes difficult for government to put services like sanitation and water, which is dignity for our people. We discourage completely land grab. I think the land must be returned constitutionally so, and the land must then be given to the people in a rightful manner, so that we can ensure that the services of government can reach our people.
Yeah, paint me a picture, Mr. Masina. The act is signed, it is enacted 20 years from now. That vision of what it has achieved.
Look, we've got ideals which are embedded in the Freedom Charter. In the main. So we want to ensure that that expression that was made by our forebears in the Freedom Charter actually is realized, so that the land is shared amongst those who work it.
All right. Thank you so much for speaking to us. We really do appreciate you coming into studio to give us the ANC's response, of course, to the President signing the Land Expropriation Bill into law.